In the city of Lagos, in a quiet estate behind tall gates, lived a young woman named Ngozi. Ngozi was kind. She was the kind of woman who remembered everyone's birthday, who stopped to greet the security guard by name every morning, who gave the last piece of meat in the pot to whoever needed it most. When she married Chidi 3 years ago, everyone said it was a good match. He was ambitious. She was steady. She will balance him, her aunties said at the wedding, smiling as they tied her gelly. For 2 years, things were good. Then Ngozi became pregnant. "It's a girl. I can feel it," Ngozi said one evening, rubbing her belly as she sat across from Chidi at the dinner table. Chidi smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "As long as she's healthy." The pregnancy was not easy. By the 3rd month, Ngozi could barely keep food down. By the 4th, her ankles swelled so badly she could not wear her shoes. By the 5th month, she slept most of the day, waking only when her body forced her to. One evening, Chidi came home to find the living room in disarray. Clothes on the couch, dishes from breakfast still in the sink, Ngozi asleep with her hand resting on her belly. He stood in the doorway for a long moment. "Ngozi," he called, but there was no response. "Ngozi," he called again and then shook her shoulder. She stirred, blinking up at him, disoriented. "Chidi, what time is it?" "Look at this house," he said, gesturing around the room. "Is this what I come home to now?" I'm sorry," Ngozi said, sitting up slowly, wincing. "I felt dizzy this afternoon. I lay down for just a—" "You're always dizzy," he cut her off. "Always tired. Always something." Chidi walked toward the kitchen, stepping over a basket of unfolded laundry. He picked up a plate from the sink and held it up. "This was here this morning too." "I'll wash it now," Ngozi said, pushing herself up. "Don't bother," Chidi said flatly. "I'll do it myself. Like I do everything myself now." Ngozi sat back down slowly, her hand pressed to her lower back. She didn't say anything else. She had learned, over the past months, that there was nothing she could say that would make things better. What Ngozi did not know was that Chidi had begun spending his evenings differently. At his office, there was a woman named Mercy, 26, newly hired in marketing, always composed, always smiling. She brought him coffee without being asked. She laughed easily at things that weren't even funny. "You look tired, Oga," Mercy said one evening, as Chidi stayed late at the office, staring blankly at his laptop. "I am tired," he admitted. "Home should be where you rest," she said gently, "not where you carry more stress." Chidi looked up at her. "You don't understand. My wife. The house is always—" He stopped himself, shook his head. "It doesn't matter." "It matters," Adiz said softly, sitting on the edge of his desk. "A man like you deserves peace when he comes home." Chidi didn't reply, but he didn't look away either. Weeks passed. The visits to Mercy's desk became longer. The evenings at home became shorter and colder. One Saturday, Chidi called both families to the house, his parents and Ngozi's parents. Ngozi sat on the couch, 6 months pregnant now, her hands folded over her belly. She assumed it was about the naming ceremony, perhaps, or preparations for the baby's arrival. Chidi stood in front of everyone. "I've thought about this for a long time," he began, "and I think it's best if Ngozi and I separate." The room went still. Ngozi's mother stood up immediately. "Separate? Chidi, she is carrying your child. What are you saying?" "I've tried," Chidi said, his voice even rehearsed. "But I can't keep living like this. The house is never clean. She's always tired, always sleeping. I don't think she's even ready to be a mother if she can't manage." "She is pregnant, Chidi." Ngozi's father's voice cracked with disbelief. "With your child." Chidi's mother, sitting quietly until now, finally spoke. "I told him from the beginning, a woman must learn to manage her home, condition or no condition." Ngozi said nothing. She sat very still, staring at her hands, as the room argued around her, as if she were not the one whose life was being decided. Finally, she looked up. Her voice, when it came, was quiet. "Chidi, look at me." He did briefly. Is this really what you want? Chidi hesitated just for a second. Then he looked away. I've already spoken to a lawyer. 2 weeks later, Chidi moved out. Not to his mother's house, not to a hotel, but into a new apartment in Victoria Island. Ngozi moved back to her parents' home in Surulere, carrying with her 2 suitcases and a child who had not yet been born. 2 months later, Chidi married Mercy. Ngozi found out the way most people in Lagos find out things, through a photo online. Chidi in a crisp agbada, Mercy glowing in white, smiling, both of them, as if nothing had been broken to make room for that smile. That night, Ngozi sat on the edge of her childhood bed, her hand resting on her belly, feeling the baby shift inside her. Her mother sat beside her, saying nothing for a long while. Then she reached over and held Ngozi's hand. Ngozi wiped her eyes. I just don't understand what I did wrong. You didn't do anything wrong, her mother said. You were tired because you were growing a life inside you. That is not laziness. That is sacrifice. She squeezed Ngozi's hand. He will understand that one day. Maybe too late, but he will. As we continue, don't forget to comment, like and subscribe to this channel. God bless you. A month after the wedding, Mercy stood in the kitchen of their new apartment, watching the house help clean up after breakfast. She scrolled through her phone, occasionally looking up to make sure the floors were spotless. Make sure you wipe under the cabinets too, she said, not looking up. I don't want anything out of place when Chidi gets home. The house help nodded silently and continued working. When Chidi arrived that evening, the apartment was immaculate. Not a cup out of place, the floors gleaming, dinner already laid out on the table. See, Mercy said, smiling as she handed him a glass of juice. This is how a home should feel when you walk in. Chidi smiled and nodded, settling into the couch. For a moment, everything felt the way he had imagined it would. But a few weeks later, he noticed something on his bank statement. A withdrawal he didn't recognize. Then another, and another. Mercy, he said one evening, holding up his phone. What is this? 200,000 naira at a boutique on Tuesday. Mercy didn't even look up from the television. Oh, that. I needed something for Chioma's event. And this? A hotel booking in Abuja? It was a girl's trip, she said simply. Chidi, please don't start. You're a big man. This is normal. Chidi opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. He thought about saying something more, but something in him, pride maybe or fear of admitting he'd made a mistake, kept him quiet. Months passed. The withdrawals continued. The house stayed clean. Adiz made sure of that, always with help, always with money. But something else began to crack, slowly, the way Chidi hadn't noticed at first. One afternoon, his business partner, Emeka, called him into his office. Chidi, sit down, Emeka said, his face serious. What's wrong? The Briscoe contract. They pulled out. Chidi felt his stomach drop. What? Why? We've worked with them for 5 years. Emeka hesitated. It's not about the work, Chidi. It's personal. Personal how? Emeka looked at him carefully. Their MD's wife is close to Ngozi's mother. Word has gone around about how things ended with Ngozi while she was pregnant. He paused. People talk, Chidi. And in this business, people remember how a man treats his family. Chidi sat back slowly, the weight of it settling over him. It was a personal matter. I know, Emeka said quietly. But out here, nothing stays personal for long. That evening, Chidi came home to find the apartment quieter than usual. Mercy was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. A suitcase open beside her. What's this? Chidi asked. I'm going to Dubai for a few days, with Chioma and the girls. Mercy, we need to talk about money. The business is. I already booked the flight, she said, interrupting him, not even looking up. Mercy. She finally looked at him, her expression flat. Chidi, I didn't marry you to start counting naira. If things are tight, that's your problem to fix. Chidi stared at her. For the first time, he noticed something he hadn't let himself see before. The way she spoke to him now, the way she barely looked up when he walked in. The way the warmth from those first weeks had quietly disappeared. The way ice melts without anyone noticing until the glass is empty. "You used to bring me coffee without being asked," he said quietly. Mercy frowned. "What?" "Nothing," Chidi said. He turned and walked into the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at nothing. Within a year, the business had lost 3 more contracts. Chidi let go of half his staff. He sold the Land Cruiser to cover salaries. He moved them into a smaller apartment on the mainland, and that was when Mercy finally left, taking with her most of the furniture and not much else to say. Chidi sat alone in the half-empty apartment that evening, the silence heavy around him. He thought about the last conversation he'd had with Ngozi. "Chidi, look at me. Is this really what you want?" And how he hadn't been able to answer her honestly even then. He thought about the dishes in the sink, the unfolded laundry, how tired she had looked, how he had never once asked her why she was tired, only that she was. A year later, Chidi attended a business event on the mainland, smaller than the ones he used to attend, a modest gathering for a friend's company launch. Tables were set with food along one side of the hall, catered by a small business that had been getting a lot of attention lately. He walked past the table and stopped. Ngozi's kitchen, the small sign read. He looked up, and there she was, across the room, directing 2 staff members, a toddler balanced on her hip. The boy had Chidi's eyes. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Ngozi noticed him. She didn't look away, and she didn't look angry either. She simply gave a small, calm nod, the kind you might give someone you used to know a long time ago, and turned back to her staff, adjusting the tray of food in front of her. Chidi stood there for a long moment. He thought about walking over. He thought about saying something. "I'm sorry, maybe, or can I see my child?" But the words felt too small for everything that had happened, and too late for everything that hadn't. He turned and walked out before the event even started, the sound of his own footsteps the only thing following him. He admitted that he had lost both Ngozi and the child. Later that night, Ngozi sat with her mother, watching Obi sleep. "I saw Chidi today," Ngozi said quietly. Her mother's hands paused over her mending. "And how did you feel?" "Nothing," Ngozi said, and she meant it. "I used to think I'd feel angry if I ever saw him again, but I just felt sorry for him." Her mother nodded slowly. "That is what happens when a person harvests what they planted. You don't need to be angry. Life will collect the debt for you." Ngozi looked down at her sleeping son, then back at her mother. "Do you think he'll ever change?" "Maybe," her mother said. "But by the time some people learn the lesson, the life they could have had is already gone." She reached over and squeezed Ngozi's hand. "You, my daughter, you stayed rooted. That is why you're still standing. Patience and sacrifice may not be rewarded immediately, but they build roots strong enough to weather any storm." If the story touched you, give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And don't forget to subscribe. There are many more stories waiting for you.